It can get pretty tedious in Excel if you have to clean up large amounts of data. And if there's only a way to do a specific task just by clicking a single button, our lives would be much better. Unfortunately, we can do that in Excel. Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create your own macro, and basically what a macro does for you is that it lets you automate repetitive tasks in Excel, and it'll save you a lot of time when you're analyzing your data. And so make sure to stick around to the end of the video, because throughout the video I'll show you how to properly save a workbook with macros in it, and then I'll show you 2 short examples on how to record the macro, and then I'll show you 3 ways to run the macro that you just created. And so with that being said, let's get right into it. Before we do anything inside, I'm gonna change the file type of the workbook, because right now it's a standard Excel workbook that won't support any macros in it. And so to change the file type, click on the file ribbon and then click on save as, and then after you do that, click on browse, and then after that click on Excel macro enabled workbook. And when you do that, click save, then you can see that at the top the type has changed, and so now we can run our macros and save it. Alright, so let me show you 2 short examples on creating some simple macros. So let's start with the first example. Let's just say that I want to highlight a row, and then I want to make it bold, make it italicized, make it underlined, change the color to red, and then change the cell color to yellow. And so just working with that one row alone, that took me like a lot of clicks on my mouse. I think that was like 4 or 5 or something. And so imagine if I had to do that for all of the rows over here. That's going to take me a lot of clicks to do. So there's a better way of doing this that's going to save me a lot of time. And so let me just undo everything. So to make this quicker, we're gonna record ourselves highlighting a single row, and then after that we can click a button and then it's gonna automatically highlight the whole row for us. So let me show you how to do that. So either go to your view ribbon or your developer ribbon, doesn't really matter, and then before you click on record macro, make sure to say use relative references, because if you don't do that, then it's gonna create an absolute reference that's gonna apply to that single row. So click on use relative references, then click on record macro, then click on, or you could edit the macro name. So I'm just gonna say highlight rows. And so be careful now, don't put any spaces in, because you're not allowed to. Either do like underscores, or for this case I'm not gonna have any spaces. I'm just gonna do that, highlight rows, and then click on OK. And so now you can see that it's recording. So while the macro is recording, I'm going to highlight the row and then make it bold, make it italicized, make it underlined, and then change this font and cell color. And now I'm gonna go back to developer tab or the ribbon and then go to stop recording. And so now if we check the macros, our macro list, you can see that the macro that we just created is in the list, and so that's what we want. So now I'm gonna create another macro, and so I'm just gonna get rid of this formatting for this row. And so you might be wondering how to use the macro that we just created for the highlighting the whole row, but I'll show you that later, so stick around for that. So I'm gonna create another macro that automatically make some kind of color scale for each of these columns. And so to do that, I'm going to go to either the view ribbon or developer ribbon. You can do whatever you want, and then make sure that you have this use relative references selected, and then click on record macro, then type in color scales. You can name it whatever you want, doesn't really matter. And then after you do that, now it's recording. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on G2, and then I'm going to highlight, do Control Shift down arrow key. And if you've seen my conditional formatting video, this process is kind of similar to that. If you haven't, then you should go check that out on the right corner. But anyway, so I'm going to click on conditional formatting and then color scales, and I'm going to go with this one. And so it's going to create a bunch of different colors. And so after we do that, click on stop recording. And then now let me check out our macros list, and we'll see that we have two macros now, the highlight rows and the color scales. Now let me undo what we just did by doing Control Shift down arrow key and then clicking on clear and then clicking on clear formats. And so now I'm going to show you how to run the macros that we just created before. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can run the macro for each of the 2 examples that we did before. And the third way of doing this is pretty cool, so I encourage you to stick around for that. But anyways, let me go on with the first way of running the macro. First, go to the developer ribbon or the view ribbon, but I prefer developer ribbon. Then go to macros and then click on select the macro that you want to run. So let's say that I want to highlight the whole row that I'm currently on, which is row 5. Then I'll go to the developer ribbon and then click on macros, and after that select the highlight rows macro and then click on run. And so it'll automatically create or highlight the whole row. And so I can do that for any of the rows that I'm currently on. So I can say highlight rows and then run, and it's gonna do that for everything, every single row. So that's the first way of how you can run a macro. And so let me undo this real quick by selecting the rows and then clear formats. So the second way of doing this is by going to this quick access toolbar, then click on more commands, and then after that it's gonna give you like a new pop-up window, and then it's gonna say choose commands from, and you want to click on the drop down arrow and then click on macros, and after that select the highlight rows macro and then click on add, and then you can modify like the symbol. So I'm gonna give it a yellow because we're highlighting it in yellow, and then click on OK, and then after that you'll see like a little icon on the top. But if you want to bring this down closer to you, I actually prefer it showing below the ribbon like that. And so now that you see the macro on the quick access toolbar, all you gotta do is click on that and it's gonna automatically highlight the row for you. And so it saves you a lot of time because all you gotta do is click a button and it automatically does the styling for you. So that's really cool. And so let me undo this by selecting the rows that I just changed and then click on clear formats. Now I'll show you a third way of running this macro. And so you have to go to developer ribbon and then go to the insert box and then click on this little rectangle over here, and then that's gonna create a button for you. And so if I drag it and then click on highlight rows, then it's gonna create a button that will automatically run the macro when you click on the button. And so you can change the text by saying highlight rows, then after that you can, whenever you click on it, it's automatically gonna change the row for you. So that's really convenient because it's a nice little visual that you can easily see, and you can click on it whenever you need to do some quick styling. So now let me show you 3 different ways of how you can run the macro that we created for the color scales. And so these 3 ways are exactly the same as the one that we did with the highlighting the rows macro. So I'm gonna go a little bit faster. So first go to developer ribbon and then click on macros, and then click on the color scales macro, and then click run, and it'll automatically create you this nice color scale. And so I could do the same thing for the other rows. So click on macros, click on color scales, and then click on run. And so I could repeat that for all of these columns. And so the second way of running the macro is by going to the quick access toolbar and then click on more commands, and after that click on, in this little drop down arrow, click on macros, and then I'm gonna add in the color scale macro into the quick access toolbar so that I can easily click on it when I need to. And then I'm gonna modify the symbol by selecting it and then click on modify, and then I'll just choose, I don't know, I'll just choose red And then, so now if I want to make a color scale for column I can just click on this button, automatically make that color scale for me. And last but not least, we can insert a button that will automatically run the macro when we click on it. And so click on color scales and then edit the text so that it says add color scale, or you can name it whatever you want, but I'm just gonna go with that. And then if I want to add a color scale to column J and K, just click on this button, then click on column K, and then click on the add color scale button. So it's automatically gonna create me this nice little grid of color. And this only took me a few minutes to add a color scale for these 5 columns. If I tried to do them manually, it'd take me a lot longer. And I just showed you a few examples on using macros, but obviously you can do much more with it. It depends on the situation that you're in. And I've only scratched the surface of using macros. And this is the first video in the playlist, and in the future I'm gonna be creating more videos on VBA, and everything's gonna get more advanced, but this is just like the basics. And so if you want to stay tuned for more VBA videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to learn how to create a dashboard in Excel, which is basically a bunch of visuals in a single sheet, if you want to learn how to do that, I've created another video in the past that I'll put on the screen over here that you can click on, and it'll take you there. And when the video is over, it will take you to the next VBA video in this playlist, which will be on navigating through the Excel VBA interface.